Your faith has made you well. The first one comes from our text, and it's Mark 10, verse 46 to 52. And it's a story of a guy called Bartimaeus. Bartimaeus, actually, some would interpret the name Bartimaeus to mean son of filth. So that actually shows how he was seen in the culture that he was in his day. All right. Now, Bartimaeus was blind. And one day, Jesus is on the road leaving, the city called Jericho. And as he's leaving, there's a large crowd following him because they are very much interested in what Jesus has to say, and they're very interested in the things Jesus does. Because when Jesus comes to town, things change. Things don't change spiritually, but they change physically, and they change emotionally. And so people are flocking after Jesus. They're following him, and it's a great crowd. And Bartimaeus, as I already said, is a blind man, and he's sitting on the side of the road. And although he's blind, there's nothing wrong with his ears. He can hear there's a commotion. And there's a crowd moving, and he can hear the name of Jesus being said over and over again, and he's heard of the reputation of this Jesus, that when Jesus meets people, deaf people begin to hear, blind people see, multitudes of people are fed, and Jesus kicks the religious leaders in their whatevers, as he seeks to correct their wrong teaching. He's heard all of this, and so he wants to meet this Jesus. So he raises his voice and says, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Well, as he says this, all the people around him begin to tell him to be quiet. "Shut up, you're Bartimaeus. You are a filthy man. You are cursed by God. You are blind. You're in a state. It shows you are cursed by God. This holy man is not going to want anything to do with you, so shut up, shut up." And it says that many people said to him, "Shut up." Everybody say, "Shut up." But you see, Bartimaeus decides he's not going to shut up, and so he says, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." And every time they tell him to shut up, his voice gets louder and louder and louder. Well, they can't believe that he's so disobedient and rude and impertinent to them. But anyway, Jesus hears him shout, and Jesus says, "Bring him to me." Suddenly the crowd changes their attitude and says, "Oh, Bartimaeus, Jesus is calling you. Come on." And they grab hold of him and they take him to Jesus. And Jesus says to him, "What do you want?" And Bartimaeus says, he says, I want to see. I want to see. And Jesus says, "Go your way. Your faith has made you well." And suddenly his eyes are open and he can see. He doesn't need people to help him and guide him anymore. He's able to walk away from Jesus on his own steam. And everybody is absolutely amazed. And Jesus said to him, "Go your way, your faith has made you well." Say that with me. Your faith has made you well. The second account I want to give you is in Luke chapter 7, verses 36 to 50. It's an account where Jesus has been invited by one of the religious leaders of the day, and he's invited to a meal in his house. And Jesus, being an easygoing person, says, "Okay, that's great." And he goes for a meal in this person's house. And as they're sitting down eating this meal, there is this woman comes in. Now, I don't know how she gets into the house. And I could speculate, and we could speculate together, but that will take our time, and we're not going to do so. We won't go there to this today. But this woman comes into the house, and she goes to where Jesus' feet are, and she begins to cry. And the tears are falling onto his feet, and as she breaks her heart. And then she takes her hair and she begins to dry his feet with her hair. And then she takes ointment that she's got and she begins to anoint his feet, as it were. And then the smell is filling the whole place. Anyway, the person who's invited Jesus to this banquet sits there and he says to himself in his heart, he said, well, if this Jesus is a man of God, then he'll know who this woman is. And the thing she's been up to, who's actually giving him this attention. Let's see, you see. And Jesus, knowing what he was thinking, said to him, I've got a story for you. And he said, speak, master, tell me the story. And he says, there were two people who owed a money lender some money. One owed 500 denarii, let's say £500. One owed £50. And they both said to this money lender that they couldn't repay. They couldn't afford to give the money back. And so the guy decided that he would forgive them. And Jesus said to his host, he said, which one would love him the most? And the host thought about it and he said, well, I suppose the one who he forgave the most. And Jesus said, absolutely right. He who's forgiven little loves little, but he who's forgiven much loves much. And then he turned to him and said, as for you, when I came into your house, you didn't give me any water to wash my feet. As for you, when I came into your house, you didn't anoint my head with oil. As for you, when I came into your house, you gave me no attention. But this woman, she has come in, and she has washed my feet with her tears, and she's wiped my feet with her hair, and she's anointed my feet with precious ointment. Therefore I tell you, though her sins are many, because she has loved much, she will be forgiven. For he who has forgiven much loves much, and he who's been forgiven little loves little. And so everybody said, who is this that can actually forgive sins? And Jesus said to her, your faith has saved you. Go in peace. Let's say that together. Your faith has saved you. Go in peace. And then the final story I want to tell you is a story where I believe Jesus is on the way to Jerusalem and he's passing through Samaria, and as he's passing through, again with, I believe, a crowd of people around him, 10 lepers. And a leper was somebody in those days that had this skin disease, and it was seen as a contagious disease. And so if you had a contagious disease in those days, you had to live outside of the community. And if anybody came near to you, you'd have to ring a bell or something, a little bell, and cry, unclean, unclean, unclean. And people would stay away from you. Because you were seen as contagious, people spoke badly about you. They didn't have time for you. They probably believed that you were cursed by God. And because of your contagiousness, they would run away from you. And so these guys, these 10 lepers, hear about Jesus. They hear about the things that he can do, the power that he has, the great things that he says. And they see him at a distance. And they keep their distance. And they cry out to him. And they ask him to heal them. They ask him to change their lives, to change their circumstance, to take away their skin disease. And Jesus says to them, he stops and he says to them, go and show yourself to the priests. And that was the thing to do. If you as a leper suddenly had a change in your skin condition for the better, you were supposed to go to the priest, and the priest would examine you, and if he found that there was no disease there left, then you were allowed to enter back into society. And so Jesus just says to them, go and show yourself to the priest. So they knew when Jesus had said that something was going to change for them. And as they turned to go, so they realized that their skin had been cleansed. And they went to the priest to get their certificate which said, you know, you're well and you're whole. But there was one guy, and this guy was a Samaritan. And this guy stopped, and he began to praise God as he realized that his skin had been cleansed. And he ran back to Jesus. And he praised Jesus and worshiped Jesus and expressed his gratitude. And Jesus said to him and all the crowd that was with him, he said there was 10 of them, but only this one has come back to give thanks to God. Only this one has come back to give praise to God. And he said to him, rise, go your way. Your faith has made you well. Say that with me. Rise, go your way. Your faith has made you well. All right. I have a question today, and the question is this, and it is a rhetorical question, so don't get too excited. Are we healed by faith, or are we healed by faith in Jesus? Are we healed by faith, or are we healed by faith in Jesus? You see, some people believe that all you need is to believe the best, trust yourself, trust others, and you will create a bit of magic. And so whatever you want, whatever you desire, whatever you long for, you will get. Because you believe. Because you have faith in yourself. Be positive in your thought, in your thinking, in your thought life. Be positive about how you look. Be positive about your gifts. Be positive about your abilities. Chase every negative thought from your heart. Every negative thought of yours. You've got this. All you need is to believe, and you will have it. Have faith in yourself. I have a relative who I love greatly, and he doesn't have faith in Jesus. He doesn't have faith in anybody else, actually. Let alone. But what he has got is faith in money. And so he believes that he has business ability, that he has business acumen, that he has business skill, and all he has to do is apply his business acumen, apply his skill, and he will make money. And if he can make money, he can have what he wants, buy what he wants. A hedge of protection will be around him. Afterlife, don't even think about that. Don't even believe that exists. And it's all about now. And he can have what he wants because he will be able to pay for it. His faith is in money. And we live in a society today in our nation where we are all important. It's about us. It's about our ability. That's why the war in Ukraine and Russia has been such a shock to people that run NATO. The chief guy of NATO said, we thought that we'd eradicated war from Europe. We thought we had eradicated war from Europe with all our philosophy and politics and all the rest of it. He was shocked when Russia invaded. All of Europe was shocked because we thought we'd eradicated war. We had done it. We had come up with a solution. that would end wars, all wars in Europe. Never would we see wars in Europe again. Have faith in ourselves. I was listening to a debate between, I won't name them, but an atheist, a scientist who's an atheist, and a scientist who's a Christian. And the scientist who's an atheist he has no time for there's a God. It's all about science. Science, 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 science. And he said, but there is one thing that may cause me, and he said, I emphasize may, because I said, I've said this before, and people have gone around saying, I've become a Christian. And I want you to know I haven't become a Christian. But there is one thing that may cause me to become a deist. Now, a deist is someone who believes that there is a God, a supreme power out there, but doesn't walk amongst us, isn't really interested in what we're doing and all the rest of it. And he said it's the constants of the universe. He said it's amazing how the sun is where it is, the moon is where it is, the earth is on its axis at the angle that it is. And if anything moves by just a little bit, then everything's messed up, everything's lost, everything's broken, everything's out of sync. And he said, if anything would make me believe that there's a supreme being out there, is that. But I don't. Because if there is a God, why isn't he stopping the wars? Why isn't he stopping famines? Why isn't he stopping pestilence? Why isn't he stopping this? Why isn't he stopping that? I just cannot see that there is a God. Because he would, if it was me, I would go about things differently, he said. And so therefore, all he was saying was this, Laurie, was that I have faith in me. And and science enables me to have faith in me, in my understanding. All right. But Charles, we've looked at 3 scriptures which says, 3 stories where Jesus says, go your way, your faith has made you well. Your faith has saved you, go in peace. Rise, go your way, your faith has made you well. That's what Jesus says. So we can tell, Charles, by the way that you're speaking to us, that, having faith in yourself isn't great. But Jesus says, and rewards these people for their faith that they have shown. What's going on? Bartimaeus. He's outside the crowd. He's trying to get in the crowd and go through the crowd. And so here's Bartimaeus. He's outside the crowd. He needs to get in the crowd and he needs to get through the crowd. All right? He's outside the crowd. He needs to get in the crowd. He needs to get through the crowd. And everybody's opposing him. Everybody's saying to him, you can't go towards Jesus. You can't. You can't go towards Jesus. You can't have your healing. You are not worthy. You are not right. You must stay where you are. This is not for you. And he refuses to accept that. And he begins to do the only thing that he can do. And he's saying, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. He lifts his voice from one decibel to another. He gets louder and louder until he gets above the noise of the crowd, and Jesus can hear him. He can't run to Jesus. He can't push his way through the crowd because he can't see to move forward to push. But what he has got, he uses. And he not only uses what he has got, but he uses it with the tenacity. He uses it with determination. He is not going to be pushed off, put off. And he shouts and he shouts and he shouts and shouts. Do you realize how massive that was a thing that he did? When you are marginalized in society, the last thing you want to do is to have everybody looking at you. When you're a minority in the society, the last thing you want to do is have everyone look at you. The times I have gone into white churches, predominantly, I've gone into white schools, white businesses, and white pubs, and I walk in as a member of the ethnic minorities in this country, and everybody stops and looks. It's like, oh, don't look. It's awful. But so here he goes. He puts aside his self-consciousness because he knows his life can change. Because he's heard the report of what Jesus can do. And he pushes through with his voice. But he's going somewhere. He isn't saying, look at me, my faith is in me. Oh, I'm confident and bold and got it all together. And No. He's going somewhere. He believes that Jesus is greater than him. He has more confidence in Jesus than he has in himself. And he has more confidence in the heart of Jesus to do him good than he has regarding his own inadequacy that he's living with every day. And so he pushes through with only that which he's got. And Jesus says to him, your faith in me has made you well. You were determined to get to me. You didn't allow anything to stop you from getting to me. Your history, your weaknesses, the culture that you live in, people's opinions of you, your failures, nothing you allowed to stop you from getting to me. You trusted me so much that nothing within you or without could hold you back from getting my attention. Therefore, your faith has made you well. And the sinful woman, she was probably maybe a prostitute, adulteress. Interesting, she got into the house, but we won't of this devout religious leader, but we won't go there. And here she is. She knows, everybody knows who she is. I want to say that she snuck in. She was determined to be in the party. She was determined to get an audience with Jesus. So she had to fight through, somehow sneak in, unobserved, to get into this dinner party. And then she had to fight what was going on within her. Because if people say that you are rubbish, you're going to end up feeling rubbish. If people say you are unworthy, you're going to end up feeling unworthy. If people say that you're a nuisance, you're going to end up at some point feeling a nuisance. Because you're bombarded with this negative dialogue. And so here she is. She's fighting without and fighting stuff within. But she's determined to get to Jesus. And Linda, you brought this word, saying that, the wise man brought frankincense and gold and myrrh. Jesus says, you don't have to bring anything, just bring yourself. She had no gold. She had no frankincense. She had no myrrh. In other words, she had no gift. She had no gift to give to this great teacher. And so she brought herself. That's all she had. And she had her hair. And she had her tears. And she had some perfume. And she was willing to pour it all out upon Jesus' feet. Not his head, not his hands, but his feet. To be at someone's feet is the lowest place. Okay? It's a humbling place. It's a humiliating place. I was once in a leaders' meeting, and we were in the West Midlands, and leaders from all over the West Midlands, and some bright spark decided that it would be good for us to wash one another's feet. And so he got this bowl, he got this towel, and he said, let's just serve one another by washing one another. Oh my Gideon. Yeah. And there we were washing one another's feet. Man, I didn't feel holy. I didn't feel special. I didn't like the feet I was washing. They were gnarled and funny, and people had funny grey stuff on their toes and all that sort of stuff. But I washed the feet. And I didn't feel proud. I felt humiliated, to be honest. Okay? I tell you what, anyway. So what she was doing was she was humbling herself. And so she humbled herself, and Jesus received her. And yet, I tell you something, she would know that everybody else around her was thinking about her, round watching her, were probably thinking what the host was thinking about her. And she was there, washing his feet, crying. And Jesus said to her, your sins are forgiven. Your sins are forgiven. What your village won't forgive you for, I will forgive you for. What your nation won't forgive you for, I will forgive you for. The thing that you struggle to forgive yourself for and bothers your conscience day in and day out, week in and week out, month in and month out, season in and season out, I will forgive you for that. I will cleanse you. I will wash you. I forgive you. And somehow it was very hard to debate that with him, because there was an air of authority over him. Because he wasn't just a good teacher. He was the Son of the living God. Thereby one with God. Therefore God. And suddenly that weight lifted from her shoulder. And she felt cleansed. Now, did she come in and say, I did this, I've done this, etc. But I've pushed my way in here, and so on, and it's about me, and I've pulled myself up out of my situation, and I've delivered myself from the situation, etc. And look, I'm by this man of God so that you all know that I'm acceptable. No. She wouldn't say it's about her. She was determined to get to Jesus. Her faith was not in herself, it was in Jesus. Because she knew that if she encountered Jesus, then everything would change. That she could be forgiven. She could be cleansed. She could start again. Because she understood that Jesus had the right and the power to give her a new life. And so Jesus said to her, didn't he? Your faith has saved you. Your faith in me has saved you. Go in peace. Peace, shalom. It means peace of heart, peace of mind, peace of emotion, peace of soul, peace of spirit. Where there is shalom, where there is peace, there is ease of conscience. Jesus came to set us free from the consciousness of sin. That's why when you meet Christians, you can, although they'll tell you stories of things that they've done which are wrong, etc., and then they'll tell you that Jesus has forgiven them. They're cleansed. They've got a joy in their heart, a peace in their minds, a sparkle in their eye, because they have no awareness of the consciousness of that sin that they have been forgiven of. And if you, as somebody who's seeking to follow Jesus, has consciousness of sin that you have committed, then it's because you've not accepted that you've been forgiven by the judge of the living and the dead. Because if you've forgiven, if you accept that you've been forgiven, if you put your faith in his ability to forgive you, then you will have no consciousness of that sin that plagues you. Oh, you hearing this? This is so good. I could stop right there. Wow. Jesus said, go in peace. And her consciousness of sin had been lifted. She was forgiven. And she could start again. Her faith in Jesus brought her to that place. And then you see the 10 lepers. What about them? Go your way, Jesus said. Your faith has made you well. They cried out. But there was one of them, after receiving his healing, he came back. He came back. He came near to Jesus. And he gave him thanks and praise and said, I recognize you as God. Jesus said, is it only you who's come back to give praise to God? Jesus was saying to him, you recognize that I'm God and you have come back to give praise to me. Your faith has made you well. Your faith in me has not just given you your sight, has not just tapped me so that you can so I could give you your sight, but it's made you whole in mind, body, and spirit. Shalom. Go your way, well and whole. I want to say to you today that let us be clear that it's faith in Jesus that makes us well. It is not faith in ourselves. It's not faith in science. It's not faith in drugs. You say, well, how do people faith in drugs? But a lot of people take drugs because they're wanting to forget. They're wanting to numb the pain of life. That's why they do it. But that's not going to make you well. Your faith has got to be in Jesus. People have faith in alcohol. That's why they drink so much. That's why they become alcoholics, because they've put their faith in alcohol. Again, to numb the pain. Again, to help them to forget. Again, to help them they think will help them navigate the vicissitudes of life. Have you noticed how many people are using that word on TV these days? You heard it here first. Anyway, but you know, that's all they're trying to do, but it doesn't work. Because they have no peace. They have no joy. Because they're in the same condition as they were before. And what alcohol, drugs, and money, and promiscuity, and all the rest of those immoral things, all it does is reinforces the brokenness, the torment, the condemnation, the pain, the consciousness of sin that you're struggling with. But if you put your faith, you'll put your trust, you'll put your confidence down in Jesus, then He will heal, He will deliver, He will forgive, He will set you free, and that you can have abundant life. You can be born again, not just turn over a new leaf, but be born again and become a son and daughter of the living God. So we heard today that Jesus is moving round us as in the meeting. And some He's putting a ring on. Some He's putting a cloak on. What Jesus was saying through that picture, He said, I'm here. And I'm here to change your life. I'm here to give you abundant life. Yeah. And whatever you need, if you put your faith in me, your creator, your maker, then you can leave this place a different person, a better person, a free person, a free, liberated person with your sins forgiven, and begin the adventure of walking with God and exploring His plan that He has for your life. It's time for you to become sons and daughters of God. It's time for you to call out to Jesus. Put your trust in Him and let Him do what no one else can do in your life. He loves you. And some of you who are already Christians, boy, giddy ant, bagum. It's time to increase your faith in Jesus and say, Jesus, no matter what they say, it's all about you and what you say.